Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm continuing in the nice weather, working really on the main problems on the C32. So, as I mentioned in the last video, disconnected the drivetrain from the differential completely. It's hanging down a little bit. It's got a little damage on the end of it that I'm hoping I can clean up without having to really buy a new drive shaft piece. Pulled off the flex disc, as I mentioned and showed last time too, and as well as pulled a lot of the exhaust system off from about halfway back. Just again, I pulled it off sort of twofold to allow better access to the drive shaft, so I can get that all aligned properly and the new flex disc on when the time comes. And I've already got the parts. And then the other reason I took it off is this muffler. It's huge, and it sort of blocked a lot of access to what I needed, what I'm hoping to do on the back end to reconnect the rear subframe where the bolt is sheared off. So I'm going to take a quick look again at what's going on down here. Give me a minute to crawl under here. So this is right where I'm sitting, where the muffler would be. This, you can see this nub hanging down and the bushing for the rear subframe sitting in there. It's kind of hard to hold this and describe what I'm getting at here at the same time. So if I can, so bushing here, the bolt comes up through here, and this should mount flush. There should be no gap here, and that I hope should be obvious to everyone. But once I jack the differential up, it'll actually close up there. But the idea is to get the bolt in there so this is not a gap at all. So this piece here, the previous owner, looks like somebody tried to extract the bolt out of there. They drilled a hole up through it. Looks like a nice drill hole, but it also looks like they tried to weld maybe something onto the nut and then broke it off. So it's got, I don't know, it doesn't look like a very promising job as far as getting that bolt out and reusing this as it sits. So my first thought is, I've got a bolt extractor. There's already a hole drilled up into the bolt. I'm just gonna try to get that up in there and see if I can reverse thread that puppy out of there. If that doesn't work, I may have to end up just cutting this thing off, which I didn't really want to do. But if we swing around over here to the other side where the bolt did not break off, it actually stripped completely out of here. Bushing, gap, and that nub on the other side should be here, but it the bolt just ripped it completely out of the body. So it's flat over here. Why not have it flat on the other side, right? So if I can't get that bolt to come out, that's probably what I'm going to do, is just have both sides look like this. And then I've got some extra tough bolts that'll fit up into here, and we'll go back to this other side again. And after doing a lot of research online, I've seen this done a few times. So I'm going to remove this heat shield up here, and then the tire well over on the other side, but the heat shield over here. Then I can get behind where this bolt is. I'm just going to cut a little hole in this piece of metal body, and I don't think that'll hurt the structural integrity of anything at all. And you can disagree with me if you like, but that's what I think. And I'm gonna put a bolt up in there, and then a nut and a big washer, and maybe even a steel plate inside to help reinforce everything. So that's the plan. And I'm probably not going to take a video of me doing everything while I do it, because it's going to take a while. But stay tuned, and I'll show you what happens next. So wish me luck. Okay, so a little while later, I decided, well, first I removed the heat shield from the muffler. Just held on by a few little screws under there, easy to pull off. And then I decided to see if I could pull out the spare tire wheel well. But these things are glued in pretty securely. Makes sense. So nothing from below can get in. Especially if you can notice all these computer electronics at between the back seats and the spare tire wheel well. Had a heat gun on it, just a little section of it for a while. Heat gun and a crowbar, and really wasn't getting anywhere. So I'm going to come up with an alternative plan for pulling that guy out. And just already pulled some of the trim off to get to it. And I think I'm just going to leave it in there, at least for now. So what I've done is on the side where the muffler was, the driver's side, I got my hole drilled up into here, as you can see, so I can access the top of the bolt. I'm gonna spray a little lubricant up in there on the bolt and see if I can extract the sheared off bolt in there. And if I can, great. I'll probably just drill it out anyway. And I've picked up some bolts with nuts on top, hence the hole in the sheet metal above it. So I can access, put a nut on, and I've got a wrench I can fit up in there. So that's where I'm going to go next. And yeah, so a little lubricant, try to extract it. If not, I may have to cut that nub and the bolt off and then proceed as planned. So here we go again. Okay, so since the last little bit, I've been at work, mostly working on the driver's side subframe bolt where it was sheared off. You recall it had that little piece sticking down. It was really gummed up. I couldn't extract it. There just wasn't enough leverage or bite on the bolt, and it was really messed up. And I actually had to cut a piece of the bottom of it off just to loosen things up and to be able to recenter the hole in order to drill the rest of it out, which was really kind of a huge pain. Not too surprising, I guess, for what's going on with it. But anyway, so I'm going to show you what I've done. I'll come over here to the workbench real quick. So the local hardware store, I picked up a couple of bolts. This 12.9 super strong hard steel stuff. The only ones they really had though were a 10mm socket, hex. But I have a set of those, so no big deal. I just had to get an extra hardened washer to go on the end to make it look fit more like a flange bolt would fit. Not exactly ideal. The other not exactly ideal is I wanted 110mm. So I tried 100, and the 100 was a little too short, and this is a 120, and they of course didn't have 110. So got that, along with the extra hardened thick, it's pretty thick fender washer type thing, but it's it should have the same hardness actually as the original bolts that go in here. It's not quite as hard as this one, but I think that'll do the trick sitting on top, and I may even throw a little extra washer on it for support, and then the nut on top. So this is essentially the hardware that I'm working with. And as we head back to the back here, let's see, try to find the camera lens to get everything in view. So, sitting back a little ways, I've already installed it on this side. I've got a torque wrench. I torqued it down to about 100 foot-pounds, which I think with that lock nut on top, it feels pretty secure. And then yeah, so while I'm here, and because I see it in the camera, down here you can see the end of the drive shaft and that little piece on the tip of it that's kind of bent. It got a little mangled. I haven't gotten to that yet, but I'm hopeful that I can kind of straighten that out enough without having to buy too many new parts. But back to here, so the hole up here, I'm going to try to tilt the camera just to get up in here and see if we can actually see the nut and everything, the bolt sticking up into the sheet metal body there. Let me squeeze under here. It's pretty tight quarters. And hang on for a ride. So as I tilt the camera, you can kind of see up into there. And that's what's securing it now from the top. So it's kind of sandwiched in, and if that gets ripped out, then wow, bad things are afoot after that. But hopefully this will do it. So let me get back out of here. The other little issue I mentioned was this spare tire well is glued in here super securely. So I think what I'm gonna do as an alternative to trying to pull that out, and just so I can get access to this passenger side rear subframe bolt the same way, cut a hole so I can put a lock nut and everything on top of it, is I think I'm just going to cut a hole in the tire well, just a little square. It should be, I don't know, somewhere right around in here. I think if I can just cut a little piece of this plastic out, I'll have access, and then I'll plastic weld it back in and finish it off real nice. So hopefully it doesn't look too bad, but shouldn't be a big deal here. And then of course the holes in the sheet metal that I'm drilling with this bimetal hole saw. Here, I'll throw this down here so you can take a look at it. I will actually, I'm going to get magnet and try to clean up as many filings as I can. Just seal those off really well so prevent future rust and corrosion due to this sort of fix that I'm doing. So hang tight, more to come. Thanks. Alright, so I got a little bit of work done here, at least the next sort of little phase. So what I ended up doing with that tire well, as I mentioned, is, if we can get a shot in here, is I just cut a little square hole out of it. Cut a square piece out of the plastic, and then using the bimetal hole saw back into the sheet metal to get a nut and washers on top of the bolt, threaded up through the passenger side rear subframe bolt. So if you can kind of see what's going on down in here, if I can get down in here a little bit. So yeah, again, super heavy duty hardware, tightened it to about 100 foot-pounds again, and it's, I think at least that's the best I can do for now. So again, I'm going to seal the hole up, make sure nothing gets in there, and then I'll patch this little square piece on the tire well, plastic, maybe some plastic weld or something, kind of finish it off, make it at least look halfway decent. And I think hopefully those two bolts should hold. So what I thought I'd do now, since I've been working on the rear subframe bolt so much, I just thought I'd take a look at the two front bolts on the rear subframe, and I think to get a look at those, they're behind the wheel. So I'm gonna yank this wheel off real quick and let's take a look. So I think I mentioned before, I bought this electric impact wrench from Walmart. They actually shipped it to me in like 12 hours. It was pretty cool. It was on sale. It's a 1/2-inch drive. And this thing, it's pretty impressive for what it does. It weighs like 15 pounds. So it's got a lot of guts inside to power it. You know, I think it was on sale for like $42. So if you don't have an impact and you don't have a whole pneumatic air setup, and you know you want to get something pretty hefty you can use, so far so good with this. So I'm glad I picked it up. Another little oddity I mentioned, I think on one of my comments, I commented on one of my videos that the tires and the wheels are all 225s, front and rear. I sort of thought that they were going to be staggered like my SLK, and I think they were originally staggered. Maybe 225s on the front, 245s on the rear. So 7.5-inch rims on the front, 8.5-inch rims on the rear. But this has the front 7.5 size all around. Anyway, just a note. So up under here, so I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and somebody will probably tell me if I am, hopefully, that this right here, sort of the front mount. So this front bushing goes up into here. I can't really get a good look as I was hoping. Let me grab one of my lights. And back in here, let's just see if we can get up in here. I just wondered if there was any extreme stress put on these, and there probably was, since the rear two broke off. But I just kind of wanted to have a look. So Okay, so here's the old flex disc again. I'm going to try to see if I can keep this in camera. So this guy here, and it's pretty cracked all the way around, both sides. Hard as a rock. I guess they're supposed to be hard, but even the hardware, you can kind of see the bolts are mangled a little bit, the nuts, the washers, so it was certainly overdue for a new one. And while I was under there, as I mentioned, it wouldn't line up right. Like, this guy actually seemed to shrink, so it wouldn't line up with the flanges on the differential to hook back up. So here's the new one. It may be hard to show you on camera, but at least I've got some nice new hardware for it. And this guy, actually the whole thing looks smaller, which I was not quite expecting that. This is the first time I've taken it out. But the holes on the new one are spread out, I don't know, maybe a millimeter or two farther out, which is what I needed when I was trying to hook this up. So that's the next step. It's getting the driveline hooked back up, make sure that that's all taken care of and mounted properly, and then we'll move on. So that's probably the last thing I'm going to do for today, hopefully. So again, thanks for watching. And as always, any comments, questions, criticism, leave them down below, and I'll get to them.